Hello and welcome to Horror Bois, the number one horror movie podcast in all of downtown Kentucky's YouTube channel. I am Austin, joined as always by...
Chris?
And Isaiah?
That's right, and we are back at it again, talking about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. It's time to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. If you've been on the internet, you know what this movie is. You've heard about it, maybe, or you haven't. And you know what? We're gonna tell
I
you.
am terminally online, and I had never heard anything about this movie.
This
Prior
particular
to
one,
watching
yeah.
That's fair. I feel like when I mean in the sense of like if you're looking up horror,
Ah.
I've watched multiple videos on this since watching the movie today, and everyone refers to this one as the gay one. When I call this movie a gay movie, I'm not saying this in like a derogatory, I don't like it way. I'm saying
No, it is just very erotic.
this movie has a bunch of boys in their underwear. There's a gay bar with leather daddies. I mean, like, it's a gay movie. So let's just hop right into this.
Let's do it.
We open on the credits over a bus, and it's driving some kids home. We do, as when the bus opens, we see Robert Englund is the driver, and we're like, oh, that's a cool little tease. What does that mean? Well, the driver is Freddy. If you saw him and thought, oh, that's the actor that plays Freddy, I wonder if it's Freddy. It is. Because as he drives these kids home. He eventually reveals that he's Freddy once it is only two girls and our main character, Jesse, on the bus. And the girls are really freaking out. Jesse's freaking out a little bit, but not to the level that the girls are freaking out Freddy just drives them into the desert. He's just driving off, going real fast, goes right past their stop, and he's just, doing his Freddy, I think he does a little maniacal laugh a little bit. And, he gets up eventually after they're out in the middle of the desert, and the ground around them is falling away, and they're left but nothing but two spires, like one right in the middle and one at the front. And that one's built out of rocks. It's not like a solid spire. You would think this isn't important, but that one's about to fall away when they slightly shift the weight. So it actually... The middle one is solid. The one in the front is not. And so as Freddy walks toward them, he scratches the upholstery and the ceiling, and he gets that cringe-inducing scratch sound that, it's a fun one.
And the girls go, look at what he's doing, as he scratches the upholstery, because it's very scary that he scratches the upholstery.
Okay, the girls in this scene are... not the best actors, and it's a good thing they're only in this scene.
Only in the one scene.
Also, one of them I watched, like I mentioned, I mentioned last week, and I mentioned before, I try to, do as much research as I can. I watched a documentary about this, and one of the girls mentioned that she wasn't even really acting in this scene, because when the way the bus was, it was actually shaking them around, and she, hit her head on a bar and was actually just screaming in pain. So that's a fun fact. It's Girl in Bus number 2. I don't know which one that is, but that was her title on the documentary.
Well, she was number 2, Austin.
The more convincing of the girls.
Maybe the one who wasn't screaming, look what he's doing.
Look at what he's doing.
What do you think the point is of this scene? Because we get introduced to the main character, and I think, oh, he's our classic kind of emo-ish outcast type character, and then he looks entirely different.
Yeah.
When we see him in the real world.
For the rest of the movie.
Dream. Yeah.
Yeah. In the beginning, I thought it was so those two girls are kind of teasing him and making fun of him and laughing at him, quietly to themselves. And I thought it was because he was a nerd, but maybe it's, as we alluded to before, some of that,
yeah, the fear of who he truly is, maybe, is, girls reject him even when he's sitting on a bus.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't remember on the documentary, I don't remember who mentions something of the idea of, this is the point where you're going on a ride, the character goes on a ride with Freddy throughout the movie, Freddy takes him for a ride through this. That's literally, I think why it's there, but, because there's also, I guess we need to address immediately is... According to pretty much everyone but the writer, they had no idea that they were making a gay movie. And even the writer had said that it was meant to be just subtext, and if anything, homophobic subtext, that ended up accidentally making a very homoerotic movie. Because this is in, like, he said, like, in an interview that, like, back that this movie was, this movie came out in, like, 85, I believe, and that was, like, peak. He was thinking, like, well, what is, like, typically the audience for these movies are, heterosexual teen males. What's the biggest fear they'd have? Having a gay dream. And that's basically where he started making this plot. But then he gets so, like, as we go through this, and you'll see, there's this so, like, on the nose, homoerotic, it almost feels like that maybe that man was dealing with some stuff that he wasn't willing to admit, because it's too on the nose to be an accident at times. We'll get to some of those things, but so I think there's definitely, whether it was intentional or not, which is a lot of things, or maybe it wasn't intentional, maybe somehow this guy, maybe he did actually stumble into making this almost, not quite when we get to the end, like, praising of being gay movie. It's so weird. It doesn't know what it is exactly.
It's a little all over the place.
Yeah, which could be because this was the writer's, like, first ever script, and he wasn't a writer. He just worked, like, in some other department, and he had a script, and they picked it up because they wanted to make this movie really quickly off of the success of the last one. So maybe a lot of this was somehow him falling. This was a happy accident. This was a Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th, the first one.
Accidentally making a great movie without even knowing what you're doing. Maybe it was that, but I don't know. We'll get to some more of the stuff as we go on. So we now have Jesse, and he wakes up screaming. Like, some of the best... He does some of the best, like, Scream
horror movie
Queen-esque...
scream.
Yeah, horror movie girl in peril scream throughout this movie. I think he might be better than any other Scream Queen ever. And, which he's a guy, which adds to the, like gender reversal of roles in this movie, which is, it's weird, and I don't know if it's intentional how well they do it. I don't know. This movie baffles me. Not that I don't like it. I want to make sure that's clear as I say that. Like, I like this movie, but I don't understand most of this movie. Where were we though? So Jesse walks downstairs after screaming. He's woke up drenched in sweat, and we get
soaked.
And we get one of these first shots that, like, kind of reverses the male gaze of, oh, it's a teen boy in his underwear drenched in sweat, and it's a prolonged enough shot that he's adjusting his underwear. Like, it's like, what is are you sure this sure are you sure writers and writer, oh yeah, you'll finally admit there was some gay subtext, which is, if this is subtext, where's the text? Because it's in my face. But
it's the subtext. Where's the overtext?
Yeah, but how did no one else, everyone else on, like, the thing, like, on the production was like, oh, we couldn't realize it was a gay movie. How?
I've never seen a gay man before, yeah, like, so I don't know what they act like.
Like, I'm not saying, I want to make sure it's clear that I'm not, like, bashing this movie for being so gay. I just don't understand. It baffles me that everyone involved said they had no idea what they were doing. It's like,
it was, yeah.
Really? Okay. But this is just, well, we're going to point it out when it happens, because it happens a lot. But,
a lot?
Yeah. Where were we, though? Now we cut to Jesse has this interaction with his family. His first kind of interaction in, like, the kitchen. I didn't write down a lot of what happens in the scene. Not much happens. It's just kind of like I think this is the first time his dad mentions, hey, you need to clean that room. You need to unpack. We've been here long enough, kind of a thing. Which does become, like, a slight bit of a plot point later. It's very slight. Yeah. But yeah. So he leaves, and he's met at the door to leave with his friend from school, Lisa. They hop in his car and they head out, and there's already kind of at this point you could tell that Lisa definitely is really into him, because as you see in, like, the next shot, or like a couple shots later, Lisa has this amazing pool, which in this amazing house, as we find out later in the movie. Yet she chooses to ride to school in this junker with him, which shows that she's going on the trip for him, not for the car, because
that cool
he has to
VW
He doesn't need it. Yeah.
he starts this car with his by pressing buttons because it's broken. He doesn't even need a key.
yeah.
And she puts it like, "Don't you need a key for that?" And she worried about somebody stealing it. And he's like, "This rattling old death trap.
Yeah.
Good luck. But we're lucky to be alive riding in this car right now." And then they just kind of merrily go on their
And
way.
they set off
All
to
right.
school, and we cut to gym class, which as everyone has a gym class. Girls do archery, boys do baseball. That's gym.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we all
At
do
the same time, directly next to each other on the
totally
field.
safe. There's no chance of the girls accidentally shooting anyone or anything like that. No, it's completely normal. That's how gym class works.
Yeah. Well, the 80s were a different time.
That's
also.
true, and that's how I just want to. That's our stunt for this movie is we are going to put on a gym class with some high schoolers where we do this, where we have archery happening at the same time as baseball. We're gonna see how it works. I'm really curious to see if it works. We'll find out.
The challenge is just to resist shooting Chris.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris is
I
playing.
like that I'm the implied stuntman.
Oh, you're playing.
Even the stunts that I'm just like, no, that's stupid.
Chris, and every other time we've talked about this, you have been the final girl, which means in this movie, you are playing the role of Jesse. I'm sorry,
man.
that's the way it works.
Gonna be possessed.
Yes, so you will have to run around in just a jockstrap and sweatpants at gym class like everyone does. Because
And then wrestle
after
with my good guy friend.
after Grady hits they're playing some baseball. Grady is a character we get introduced to. He ends up hitting a ball that ends up hitting Jesse in the head. But then Jesse gets the ball and is able to get him out. And after he gets him out, Grady does what every normal heterosexual guy does after someone gets him out in baseball. He pulls down his pants and starts wrestling him on the floor. As we do. There's a giant shot of bare butt, and you might be thinking, "Oh, bare man butt. That's different." Not for this movie. You're gonna see a lot of it. Get used to that. That's a feature.
It's a feature.
Yeah. So after they fight, the coach walks up and he he tells them to assume the position, and then we cut to them in like a planking push-up position where they're trying to just hold themselves up.
Yeah. They aren't getting paddled.
No, they're not getting paddled like you assumed because this movie subtext hits you over the head like a brick. Like it's so you assume that they're going to be assuming a different position, but they're not, and they're they do this and they have a little conversation where Grady mentions how he gets sick pleasure out of this. I think he goes to like BDSM bars. And we find out later he does. Somehow Grady knows that, which that's even maybe a more questionable thing that I didn't think about till right now. Why does Grady know this? But that's neither here nor there. We know. True, could be gossip.
High school gossip.
I just want to know if Glenn and the other guy from the last movie Glenn and Rod ever dealt with this coach. Was he in the school yet, or did he start since the 5 years since the last movie? Because I don't know if Johnny Depp could handle this. Where were we?
Well, he is dead, so.
I meant back when he was alive. Gosh, I mean that's true. Glenn is dead. Sorry if you were a big fan of Glenn and you only watched the first half of that last movie. Or he's not dead because the ending is weird and ambiguous.
Now, if the ending is real, then he's definitely dead.
Yeah.
And so is everyone.
Yeah. All right. So now we have where were we? I said, I don't know where this is.
The position they do the.
I write somewhere. So at some point,
time.
Yeah, I write at some point around this scene. Grady and Jesse have some suggestive dialogue. So they must have had some sort of dialogue. I don't remember what the dialogue was, but they had some sort of back and forth that once again screamed the themes of this movie, whether they were intentional or not. Then we have they cut to the the locker room, and Grady is telling Jesse that about how he lives in Nancy's house. He tells her about how some girl who died in your house. Well, not did die. Some girl went crazy in your house after her boyfriend died across the street. And this is the first time that he is hearing about this. So Jesse's a little like, what? Now we cut back to Jesse's house, and he can't sleep. He wakes up from his bed, and he goes to the kitchen, and he gets looks like a lemonade, maybe some orange juice. Can't quite tell. It's kind of a weird yellowish orange.
Well, he opens the fridge door, and then it immediately
crashes out like it was
like
just
whoever put that orange juice in there just really did not care.
Yeah, maybe it was a prank. His little sister's a prankster. But then he sees something out the window, and he, of course, goes out to, investigate it, because it's a horror movie, and specifically, it's a Friday the 13th movie, and at this point, you kind of tell that it might be in a dream.
It's not a Friday the 13th movie.
You're right, it's a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I'll remember it eventually. Go. The best part is, back when we watched Friday the 13th, I called it Nightmare on Elm Street a couple times. I just can't get it right. But yeah, so it's a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and you can kind of tell in this scene, because it's got a little bit of that vibe. It's a dream, so in dreams you can't quite control where you go. So sometimes you go to places you probably wouldn't in normal life. So he heads outside to investigate something, and while he's outside, he looks into the window in his basement, and he sees Freddy's in there, and he's putting something in the furnace or taking something out. I actually think he might be taking his glove out of the furnace.
Yeah,
I believe. Yeah, the furnace is ablaze, and he's messing with it. He kind of looks up at him. Jesse, leaves to go inside, and right as he comes in, then he goes to he fights with the door for a little bit.
Checks the cellar door.
He looks down the basement, kind of hears some stuff, closes it, but can't quite close it. He's fighting it. The door's trying to fight to open. Eventually, he closes it, turns around, and nope, there's Freddy, right there, in his face. And Freddy tells Jesse that he's got a body, and he's got the brain. He has this really cool scene where he rips off his scalp and doesn't have a skull and just reveals a brain.
Throbs.
Throbs. It's really cool.
Pretty cool.
There's a lot of really cool effects in this movie. This movie does some really good job on effect work.
And then immediately after, there's a really weird and uncomfortable scene between Jason and... Not Jason. Hello. It's a Friday the 13th movie, remember?
Okay. I'm not bad.
I don't have to get this right anymore.
Freddy and Jesse have a very weird and homoerotic scene where, Freddy puts his claws all over his face.
True, yeah. He kind of shushes them almost with his claw.
Yeah.
I believe he does that actually right before he says the "I have a body, you have a brain" thing.
Because that scene culminates in it builds up to a really good scream that you're kind of waiting on. Because he sees Freddy and he's just kind of shocked a little bit.
Yeah.
That's it. But it's a dream, so.
Yeah, and then so he wakes up screaming again, because that's how this happens. He screams, and then we cut to just the morning. It's not like we cut. This isn't one of the 4 times where we have him wake up covered in sweat in his bed.
Covered in sweat?
Yeah, half naked.
Fresh out of the pool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not this scene. That's every other scene. I think he has a small interaction with his parents that morning. Then he heads to school, and we have he's kind of nodding off in science class. And then he has this scene where apparently he might have been holding the snake before, or what. It's very hard to tell what happened here.
Well, yeah, he's asleep, and then Grady and other guy look over, and they're like, oh, he's asleep. And then we cut back to him, and suddenly there's a python, slithering all around him.
Yeah. And you kind of think maybe this is a dream. They kind of want you to think it is, but it isn't. Because
he wakes up and he's like, no!
Yeah.
And then the teacher comes and pulls the python off of him.
And puts it in there, just puts it in there.
Holds him for the python crawling on him.
Yeah. Oh, what are you doing with this? And puts it away.
Which begs the question, if somebody did put that on him, how did anybody put that on him without the teacher noticing it all?
It's a weird scene. I don't think there is a solution for how it happens exactly. It just kind of happens.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Or maybe we're taking the dream logic, where if you're touching the thing that you are
but then
dreaming
where
about.
did the snake that should have been there be? That's the problem.
Because there was a cage for it.
Yeah, that's the thing is, if it was dream logic,
into.
I'm completely willing to believe this is a dream and somehow we got the snake there. If they didn't immediately have the teacher go, oh, this belongs here. It goes in our snake cage. It's hold up.
No, this is our emergency snake cage in case somebody starts dreaming and a python appears out of nowhere.
To be fair, they do live on Elm Street. They probably should have that. But
Got dream cages of all sizes.
Yeah.
And Jesse then is at home and he calls Lisa and to make plans with her. We see her come out of the really nice pool. This is the point where we realize, wait, why is she going to school with him in this crappy little car? She must really love him. So he makes plans with her, but as he's about to go leave, his dad's like, no, you can't leave. You get upstairs and you clean your room. And well, he goes and does that. And it's set to music.
Well, unpacks his room.
Yeah, he's going to unpack. You're right. It's to unpack his room, and he goes, and it's like it's a montage almost, but not quite a montage. Set to music as he's dancing around. I believe the intention was to do something like Risky Business, which was a popular movie that had just come out. But they don't hit Risky Business. They hit weird, like, gay music video that just feels out of place.
Business.
Yeah, in the middle of this movie, he's like, there's a point where he's like backing his butt up to close a drawer. Like, it's like
he does twerk on his drawer.
Fun fact about this scene: this dance scene is played quite often at like in full at gay bars. They play this scene because like we I don't think we mentioned it yet, but this movie's actually been like this movie is not obviously not I'm not going to speak for one. I'm not in the gay community, the gay horror community, so I can't speak for any of them. But I have heard that the majority of the gay horror community like love this movie. This movie has like huge, like there's a huge backing in like the gay community for this movie, and one place that it is used is at like gay bars. They will play this song on like play this music video-esque thing on the screen. So, there's a fun little fact about gay bars in this movie.
Nice.
Yep. But yeah, as he's doing this weird little dance number, it culminates with him gyrating with this little bat thing, and
yeah, he's got like a tiny little baseball bat.
It also has like a little ball that like
around
can pop out of it.
Yeah.
But he pops out right at the end, right
it's the world's
as
smallest pop gun.
Yeah, right as Lisa walks in with his mom.
The climactic pop.
Yeah, and
he's got like all this stuff on that he was just like, yeah.
he was having a fun time, you know,
and some sparkly gold glasses.
Yeah, he has that really fun and really weirdly delivered line where he dumps the first box in as he starts. He's like, "Is that good enough for you, Dad?" And it's like, all right, okay. This scene, I would almost argue, has a gay subtext, while the rest of the movie hits you over the head. But it is what it is. There's nothing wrong with that. I want to make sure that's clear. I love this movie for how gay it is. I really do. But it is very gay. So she comes in, she starts helping him finish, unpacking his room, and she after going past the board game Probe that is in his closet, because the stage director,
it's subtext.
The
subtext.
Like the stage. To be fair, that one there is a couple things that are blatantly done because the stage coordinator, who did like the props and stuff, was gay and could tell what was happening, and there's like a sign on his door that says like no out of town chicks, but the word no and chicks are really big, so all you see is no chicks on his door. He has the board game Probe in his closet. Like there's definitely some stuff here. But she finds Nancy's diary. She starts reading it. First, she reads a little story about how she likes looking over at Glenn across the street. Then Jesse's like, "Hey, let me read a little bit," and he flips a little bit further, and he starts reading a thing that they start thinking is another, sexy time written thing. But then it mentions metal claws and his name being Fred, and it freaks out Jesse because she's describing the person he's been seeing in his dreams.
There's a really good connection, a really good way to jump from number one to number two.
Yeah,
it would have been better if we had seen the diary in number one.
Yeah,
unless I missed it. I don't think that was there, so I don't know how much foresight they exercised. But I feel like an alternative would have been, I don't know, they keep one of the same characters, and then that like every time that just feels so forced. And in this one, this seems like a very natural progression from 1 to 2, same house, and he emerges from the furnace, very very poltergeisty, and it just seems anchored in like the way things should go in a way.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's reading it aloud before he. Oh, sorry. And then that kind of where that scene ends, and we cut back to that later that night, and Jesse he's like writhing in bed before he kind of wakes up and notices that everything in his room is melting. Like, yeah, everything's melting, and so he gets up and he heads down to the basement, and he goes straight to the furnace, and he finds Freddy's glove there. Still, I think it's kind of a cool feature. It's still wrapped just like it was in part 1, from what the way her mom wrapped it, which I guess implies that this is the real glove that was there. Maybe. I don't know.
Probably, sure.
Maybe. But yeah, so he meets Freddy down there, and Freddy tells Jesse to put on the glove and, kill for him. But,
Kill for me.
And Jesse, kind of freaks out, doesn't want to do that, so he starts to try to run away, but he trips, and that wakes him up, but the glove is there. Freddy's not, but the glove is there, which kind of is like, oh no, what does this mean? The next morning, he is telling Lisa about his sleepwalking, and suddenly, like, I don't know how much of the story he told her at this point, but he's telling her parts of it, and her friend Carrie, Kimmy, something with a K, name with a K. Her friend, I didn't write down the name of her, but she comes up and she like asks, I think it's Carrie. Like, I think it's Kerry. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, 1 second.
Okay.
She has dark curly hair, and I remember that.
She does.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I just had something in my mouth. It wasn't that I was like pondering that or anything. I was just like, nope. It was an awkward timing, yes. But yeah, she comes up and she mentions the party that I think, or am I the wrong scene? It might be the wrong scene.
I think this is it.
Okay. Okay. I couldn't remember if this was the. You're right. This is that.
Oh, they're walking in the hall.
They're walking. Yeah, walking in the hall. Yes. I couldn't remember if this was that scene or if that was later, and this was like the scene in the car. But I think I've swapped. I think the scene in the car is later. It's. Point is, she comes up and she mentions this party. She asks, "There's gonna be any cute boys there?" Lisa says all the cute boys are gonna be there. So that's pretty cool. All the cute boys are gonna be there. I mean, it sounds like a fun party now. Yeah. So she's having this big party. We now know that party is gonna be a thing. Maybe that might be a really important plot setting later. Now we have Grady and Jesse talk about the coach in the locker room, and he walks up on them talking crap about him, and of course he makes them do some more of the push-up plank punishment. Because maybe don't talk bad about the person who like runs the room you're talking bad about and could definitely walk up on you at any second. Might have been a lapse in judgment on their part. But yeah, now we're back we're back at Jesse's house, and everyone in his house is like, it's hot, and they're all like, oh my gosh, it's hot. And Jesse's dad goes over to the thermostat and finds out that it's actually 97 degrees in their house,
and also there's birds that find out exist.
Yeah. The scene opens with the mom covering up the bird cage to let us know that there is a bird cage.
Mm-hmm.
This scene
there wasn't previous
is very much hated online. Everyone thinks the scene is awful, and I get it.
What?
Yeah, I don't hate this scene as much as the internet. This is like one of the big things people point to on pointing out how this movie has like bad writing and bad pacing and all this stuff. Is this scene? I don't quite get the absolute hatred for this scene or at all for this movie. But this scene is brought up in that, and because we lead to this, and the birds start freaking out in the bird cage, and Jesse goes over there. He opens it. He like takes off before he opens, he takes off the blanket.
The cover.
Yeah, the cover blanket. Whatever. The cover.
Yeah.
He takes off. It's no longer covered. He goes as he goes to open it. One of the birds falls dead, and he goes to get the other bird out. It snips at his finger. Yeah, and it starts flying around the room.
Well, I think it's implied that the other bird killed the
yes, but
bird.
all I'm saying is we didn't see it. We just see a bird fall dead. They don't show us a bird killing a bird, so yes, it is
not fallen dead. It's just on it's on the ground of the bird cage dead.
Sure.
There was no trial. We don't know,
But so the bird starts freaking out. It flies all over the place. It eventually hits the dad, which
Gives him a real nasty peck.
Yeah, fun fact. Apparently, the way they were filming this, the dad actually did get hit by the wire the bird was on in the scene. He actually did a little cut under his eye. I don't know if that's why he's wearing the Band-Aid the rest of the movie. I think it might be. I think that he actually got hurt filming this scene. But so the bird's flipping out, and then it bursts into flames randomly.
It does explode.
Yeah, which I think might be part of why people hate this scene. It's just the wait, what? Why is there a bird?
That's a reason to love this scene. Are you kidding?
I mean, I don't hate this scene. And I think the writer...
I think it is ridiculous.
Yes. I think the writer said that the reason that this scene exists is it's supposed to play off of the fact that birds know when bad things are about to happen. In how birds used to be taken down into mines and stuff. So
yeah, canary in the coal mines.
Yeah. So they would freak out before, they know, that's how people. That was the intention of the scene, but it is just it's a weird scene. It's a.
I think we decided to have the bird blow up.
Yeah, it's a weird bird blew up scene, and also, you could argue that I don't agree with this sentiment, but to play devil's advocate, I think part of why this scene is hated is because it represents a lot of this. Freddy has random, weird, magical powers outside of the dream world that he just has now, and just accept it. And it's only for this movie because this movie does not feel like any other Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Yeah, I mean,
since when can he make things in the real world just randomly catch on fire? It's never something he was able to do before. He only had power in dreams for the most part.
I definitely understand why people would be angry, and that's something that I was confused about a lot during this movie until I just had to accept that that's what this movie was going to do.
Yeah, and I that's what my
just
my
ignore the rules of the first one.
But also, I think to give this movie, once again, maybe I'm playing devil's advocate for the movie for people who hate it, but I think that that's okay at this point. We can look at this movie as an outlier in the whole franchise, or we can go, this was the second movie ever. There were barely any rules. There was one movie where Freddy didn't try to possess someone. Doesn't mean he couldn't. That's just my thought process on it, especially when this is the second movie in the franchise. Yeah, sure, with hindsight, you can go, oh, that's stupid that he did this and didn't ever do it again. Sure, maybe. But when you look at this movie from when it was made, which it was hated when it was made, too. So, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it also made tons of money, but it was critically panned worse than people did not like the directions they took it, and most of the directions they took.
In addition to that,
Mm-hmm.
They do go out of their way to clarify, one might criticize clumsily, that the birds are being put to sleep. In which case, if you want to really scrutinize the rules of Freddy, that would be when his powers kick in, right? If they were to fall asleep like that,
yeah, I think you're.
So there
right.
is that.
I think
on the birds go to sleep, and Jesse himself, one of the birds gets murderous because of Freddy possession. So
I like this. I like this theory you've come up to justify the scene people hate, and I respect it, and I'm with it because I don't hate this scene. So I'm you're right. It's because they were asleep. Take that, internet.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I think a just reason to hate the scene, it's not the explosion itself. It's so much as the way that they deal with it afterward.
Yeah.
Because immediately the accusation is you fed that bird the entire firework.
Clearly, you killed those birds, and you set this
that
whole
wasn't
thing
the
up.
immediate reaction. His father immediately was well, there must be a gas leak or something, which doesn't make sense.
Well,
but he was trying to justify it. And just it's
well,
not a gas leak.
So.
And he's why? What else could it be? Your mom said she
You
smelled
did
gas.
this.
Oh, so did you do this? That must be the scenario. And that makes Jesse angry, so he storms off.
That feels a little bit forced to me.
Yeah, it does.
That feels more awkward than the spontaneous bird combustion.
Yeah, no, it does.
That's fair.
But yeah, Jesse, I'll be honest, it's funny, I won't praise his acting later, but in this scene, his acting is pretty rough, as Jesse gets angry at his dad, and he leaves. But he can't sleep again, and he goes downstairs before lightning randomly hits the dishes, which makes you think this scene is a dream. But as we find out later, it isn't. So I'm very confused by what happens and what didn't happen in this next couple scenes. Because it's definitely implied later in the movie that pretty much everything here had to have happened the way we saw it. Yeah. So
Even though it looks in a lot of parts very dream-like.
Yeah, I think they want you to think it could be a dream. But
Because Jesse then decides to, with his shirt completely unbuttoned, and no shoes on, I think.
Yeah, no, he's definitely
walk
shoeless.
walk over to Don's place, which
Yeah.
is an bar.
Yeah, it's definitely it's very much a gay bar, BDSM bar, leather daddy bar. You got all those bunch of.
Well, there's women there too.
There are, but it's still definitely a gay bar.
I mean, that's probably primarily what it functions.
Like, and here's maybe those are lesbians, or maybe they're even bisexual people, but like
Or bi.
it's definitely that's the scene here. And he goes into there. He goes up. He orders a beer.
And the weirdest thing happens.
Whoa,
the bartender hands him a glass, and he pours the beer into a glass.
But that bartender,
why?
is the producer.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, he really wanted to be in this movie. He specifically wanted to be Grady's dad later, but the director was like, "No, we want a good actor for that one scene," which I don't quite understand. Like, we need a real actor for that, and it made him mad a little bit. But he gave him this role instead. So that is the producer. I think his name was Bill something. I don't remember off the top of my head. I could be wrong about it being.
He looks like one of the ugly stepsisters from Shrek
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
in this scene.
fill glass with your beer.
Yeah, he gives him the glass, and he starts filling So Jesse starts filling the beer into the glass, and
Weirdo.
a
for that.
hand grabs his wrist. Oh no, it's his coach, who is in full like leather daddy garb, and is at the gay bar, like Grady had mentioned earlier. So he was right that is where he hangs out.
We're true.
But yeah, so now the coach, I guess to punish him for this, takes him back to school and makes him run laps. As you do.
In the gymnasium after the school is closed.
When it's just him and the student.
Very standard
As
fare.
every normal... While he's still in his full leather get-up from his gay bar experience. Yes.
And
that is...
yeah.
It's a straight movie, Chris. It's a straight movie, and everything in it is normal and how people
And
normalize.
the scene where he's running around in the gymnasium is what really, like, would lead most people to believe that, yeah, surely this is a dream, because, like, the room leading into the gymnasium is just blaring red. Like a hellscape red in the hallway.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely...
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so this is clearly a dream.
I think what they're doing here is I think they're trying, and I do think failing, to do a reverse of what the first one did so well. The first one did a really good job of you not knowing if it's a dream yet. I think this one was trying to throw you red herrings to make you think it's a dream when it wasn't. I think they did a bad job.
Dream, right? I mean, yeah.
But I think the implication was, oh, let's try to make it look like it's a dream so people don't know if this is a dream or not till that later scene where he finds out the teacher's actually dead, or the coach, and that makes him freak out a little bit. Because there's a scene where literally it's just there for him to go to school and find out the coach is actually dead. We watched him kill the coach. We all knew he was dead. You would think Jesse would have realized he was dead, but I guess Jesse was still in denial at that point because maybe Jesse also thought this was all a dream.
Yeah, so he runs laps in the gym.
And the coach tells him to go take a shower.
And so he does.
And of course, Jesse, rather than taking the quickest shower ever and getting the heck out of there,
really
takes his
puts his
time.
face all up in the
full on,
shower
just
head.
like, oh, I'm gonna get clean. I was told to take a shower. I have to take a real shower.
I did walk around in the rain at night, and then go to a gay bar. I am covered in filth.
Well, he's doing all of this because he's being led around by Freddy.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
no, that's fair. Maybe that definitely, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's why he left the house in the first place, and
yeah.
the shower is now his little spider web where he's going to lure in gay gym teacher guy.
But before we have him lead him into there, we have the coach in his, office, and
Being
he is
assaulted by balls.
Yep, balls flying at his face. Once again, subtext. It's subtle. I respect
Just
it.
very subtle.
I respect how subtle it is that this openly gay man is getting pelted with balls in his face. I don't know what they're doing here. This is crazy. But then he gets his arms tied up into jump ropes, and he gets dragged into the shower where he gets tied up and stripped. And then, oh, would you look at that? Oh, he's now also getting spanked by a floating towel repeatedly. Very straight movie. But yeah. Then Freddy, we assume Freddy at this point, slashes his back, does it twice. That kills him. The water also turns to blood.
Transition scene where it's Jesse in the shower, and then the fog rises up, and then kind of clears away a little bit, and then it's Freddy.
Yeah.
And then he slashes at his back.
And then they do kind of a similar thing, but in reverse, and we see covered in blood Jesse to end the scene, and he gives another one of those iconic. I love them. I really do. Those iconic screams he gives, and he belts one out. And then
the scene cuts.
We cut back to his house, and we're inside with his parents, and there's a knock at the door, and 2 cops just bring him back naked, and we're like, yeah, we found him naked.
Walking around on the highway.
Yeah. Keep a short leash on the kid. And they leave. That's it. They're not mad. The cops aren't even angry that they found this kid just out about naked. They're just hey, can you be a better parent? Be a better parent. Why is he out naked? Goodbye.
You should know where your kid is instead of walking on the highway naked.
But then his dad, he tells him, I have 2 questions for you. 1, what are you on? And I don't remember the second question.
And
who did you get it from?
To you?
Yeah. And Jesse's
reasonable questions.
I mean, they are fair questions, but Jesse's I'm not.
After being found naked on the highway.
This is another point where I think we need to point out the maybe unintentional, maybe secretly intentional, I don't know. There is such a... I think why this movie has been accepted and loved by the gay community is there's such a not pure not pure. What's the word? Peering in, with looking into the lives of a lot of gay people, where their father is completely rejecting them and not believing them, while their mom is just completely accepting and ushering him. I just feel I feel like maybe it was unintentional, because maybe I'm giving this movie more credit, but it just adds to this story that they unintentionally made a really good gay movie, which is weird. It wasn't on purpose, I don't think. But there's this that element of I've known people where that's the stereotypical thing. Oh, the father rejects the kid because how dare he be gay, but the mother still loves him and accepts him. And that's kind of what's happening here with his parents. His father's just oh, I don't know, this kid. And his mom's oh, she's at least outwardly showing him nothing but love. I don't know, I just feel it was worth mentioning. I don't know enough to dive fully into that and try to break down the psychology there, so we'll move on. But I do think that was on purpose.
I think it's worth mentioning too, and we can talk about it more at the end, because I agree. I think it's worth mentioning. I think what complicates your theory is the centrality of the love plot with his girlfriend.
I agree, and I actually have a reason why we'll explain that even some more later. We will get to that, but yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Where were we? So his dad thinks he's on drugs. Wake up the next morning, and there's a little interaction with his parents where they're she's talking about how she needs to get him help, and his dad's no, we just need to kick him in his butt and send him to a methadone clinic, which would arguably be getting him help. Just saying. And he's she's we need to get him some professional help, and he's no, we need to send him to a professional to get help. It's hold up. You're saying the same thing.
Hold on a minute.
Also, the dad's a terrible actor. I just want to point that out. This scene is his acting in this scene is so rough. But yeah, Jesse and Lisa, they go off to he gets in the car with Lisa, and they show up at the school, and they see a bunch of cops, and Jesse's obviously freaking out because I think he's at this point, realizing, oh crap, I actually killed, the coach last night, and he walks up, and then Grady confirms that by saying, "Whoa, someone killed the coach," and that's the whole scene, and we cut away. Which goes back to my theory of I think that other scene we were supposed to think it was a dream, or could have been, because now we're having it confirmed that it wasn't. So,
yeah, and in defense of this movie, and the whole "is it a dream? Is it not a dream?" is I think we're supposed to see it partially through the eyes of Jesse, who is also kind of losing his sanity. As he's being possessed by Freddy.
Yeah.
And, as we'll probably discuss more and more later in the movie, as it happens more frequently, it feels like this possession of Freddy is also kind of like a representation of the repression of his sexuality, and how that's affecting him mentally. And at certain points, he just breaks.
But yeah, now we cut to that evening, and Jesse's sister is jumping rope and singing the Freddy rhyme.
Yep.
It's a really creepy little scene. It's quick. Nothing else really happens in that part of it. But like Jesse, and then we go back to the next morning, and Jesse confronts his dad about the house's history and how, did you know that like we got this house? Why we got this house for so cheap? And it freaks out his sister, and his mom tells him like, no, they're just pretending, and they shouldn't have this conversation in front of her. Which is, I just thought that I liked that little scene. But there, before that happens, the toaster catches fire, and they put out the toaster fire. The dad gives the great line of, "That's the craziest thing I've ever seen," which he says that
it's contradictory to right after he had seen a bird explode in front of his eye.
Toasters catch on fire. Birds don't. I would argue one of those is a crazier thing. He does.
Birds aren't supposed to be plugged in.
Yeah, they do.
He's like, it wasn't even plugged in.
He does mention that it's not plugged in, which I guess, yes, makes it a little crazier that it happened. But I'd still argue a toaster catching fire is not as crazy as a bird bursting into flames.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess in his mind, his son did that with the cherry bomb. There's no other explanation, so in his mind, that actually makes sense. And he didn't see his son put a cherry bomb in the toaster, so he's really confused on how this would happen.
You're right. Oh, yeah.
Jesse and Lisa have a little conversation in the car as they drive to the power plant where Freddy had worked in his human life. Lisa mentioned,
and where he killed all the kids.
I was getting to that.
Yeah.
Lisa mentioned that Freddy killed his 20 victims. I don't know if we'd ever heard the exact number before in the last movie, but he killed 20 children. And then on the way there, Lisa mentions that she thinks this might just be like some sort of psychic connection he has. I didn't remember that when we watched it the first time, but I actually watched this movie a second time today with my dad. I've seen this movie twice today. But yeah, so she mentions like a psychic connection, which does actually explain this next scene more. At first, I was like,
because
she keeps asking him, "Do you feel a connection?" And I would just kind of like,
feel anything?
I was like, okay, why would he feel something? That's a weird jump there. But she did actually explain that he had. That was her theory.
Thought he was a psychic.
Yeah, and he keeps saying that he doesn't feel anything, and eventually he does glance over.
Don't feel anything towards you, Lisa. I am gay. is maybe the subtext here.
I think that one might be a stretch. I don't know, but I could be wrong. But he does notice this cabinet, and there's a really long shot of them walking towards the cabinet to open it, and it's just a little rat.
Oh, rat, scary.
No, it's a rat. That's it. Just it's a rat. I will say, on a rewatch, I did notice a welder's mask under the rat, which makes me wonder, was that does that where Freddy made his glove? From the credits of the first movie? That might be me looking way too into it. But I did wonder if we were supposed to be like, I wonder. Might have not. But that scene feels so pointless that I want to believe there was something there that we were supposed to care about.
Oh, no, Austin.
Because I genuinely really like this movie, which makes I want to believe that there was a purpose. So I'm going to say I saw a welder's mask there, and I believe Freddy was wearing a welder's mask in the credits of the first movie. So, moving along, and we have this really cool first-person shot from the basement. And we're walking upstairs, all the way up, through a couple doors, up to the top, up to the stairs. Someone goes into Jesse's sister's room, and we hear Freddy's voice tell her to wake up, little girl. And she does, and she asks, what time is it? And then
very casual response.
We get it takes a little bit of time, because I think as he's waking up and realizing what's happening, Jesse goes, it's really late, go back to bed.
And she's like, all right.
Okay. What's better? If you're in the middle, if you're really tired and you're half awake, and someone goes, hey, just go back to bed, and they're like, all right, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fair response. Yeah. It does. It is a little weird that there was no conversation about that at the lunch table or the breakfast table the next morning. Why did you come into my room, wake me up, and then tell me to go back to sleep? No idea what you're talking about. Never happened. What we're talking about. Doesn't happen. That scene doesn't happen. And we have the next morning. I think with this next morning we have another one of those shots where, once again, I think maybe it was on purpose. He have his mom really trying to check in on him. I think this is the scene where she goes, "Oh, you're looking really nice," even though he's not looking any different. So she's just trying to be nice to her kid and trying to show him love, because she's like, "Oh, you're looking a lot better." Yet he still looks like a mess, and he's got starting to get bags under his eyes because he's not sleeping. He's not looking better, but she says he is. Then next morning on the car ride to school, Jesse tells Lisa that his dad thinks he's on drugs and his mom thinks he's crazy, and he's at the point where he's starting to think his mom's probably right. Now we cut to school later that day, and we have a little interaction with, I want to say once again, I think her name is Carrie, has a little conversation with Lisa about what's up with Jesse, and she's like, I don't know. And they head over to the lunch table, and Grady's really trying to be a great friend. Oh, you want to come hang out? Because he has food in his mouth this whole scene. It's really annoying.
Oh, yeah. Hey, let's go catch a movie after this.
Drink another, he also has 4 milks in front of him. Just saying.
Yeah.
He's a growing boy, Austin. He needs his milk.
I know he's a growing boy. We saw him shirtless. He's definitely growing. I don't know what that meant. That felt worse after I said it than it was meant to be. I don't know what that meant. We're moving on. Eventually, Grady's trying to Grady mentions that I think I don't remember what it was. Lisa's trying to get Jesse to open up at the table, and Jesse's I don't want to talk about this, and Grady's oh, he's a basket case. He's got food in his mouth this whole scene. It's really annoying. Yeah. And then that really makes Jesse mad. He yells at him to shut up, and that really offends Grady. Also, he tells him to shut up, and everyone in the lunchroom looks over at them. Huh? What? He said shut up. It's not he yelled a curse word at him or nothing. Just shut up. And everyone's
shut up, not be quiet. I'm telling.
Oh. And that really makes Grady mad, because Grady is also in love with Jesse. Just saying, there's a lot of romantic tension between them.
He's very closeted.
There's a lot of romantic tension between those two. Sorry, something in my throat. So yeah, now we cut to Lisa's party later that day. Also, I believe at some point, maybe way earlier, we find out that Grady is not going to be at the party because he's grounded. I don't remember if it was in that scene or if it was in the scene where we first hear about the party.
The lunch table, I believe.
I think it is at the lunch table, yeah. I think,
yeah.
Cause I think maybe homegirl Carrie was trying to see if he was going, because I think she might have the hots for him. Maybe it's very not implied, because she's really curious if he's going.
By.
It's it's nothing. There's no setup for them having a character, because they can't, because Grady is very gay. But yeah, Jesse, we cut to the party, and Jesse's, he's just a mope, and so he's gonna leave the party, Lisa goes over to talk to him, and she's like, "Why are you doing this?" And he kind of, tells her that he doesn't feel right. He just, he has a little heart to heart with her, and she tells him she goes and leans in for a kiss, and they kiss, and then we cut out to the party goers, and they're all waiting for her parents to turn off the light and go to bed so they can start having this raucous party, and apparently there's no repercussions if they turn their lights off. It's weird. I mean, I know the parents, and there is a little scene where the parents go, "Oh, it's not," the mom goes, "It's not worth it, just let them have fun." But there is this moment where everyone at the party goes, "Yeah, they turned the lights off, now we can party and drink beer." It's why are you immediately start playing really loud music and all this the second they
it doesn't take anyone time to fall asleep. They just go to sleep immediately.
The beer has a fancily designed label that just says beer.
Well, to be fair,
you'll see that they wheel in a whole wagon full of it, and it's the Pabst Blue Ribbon flourished cursive style. It just says beer.
I mean, to be fair, they can't get the rights to the real beers. I mean, that's fair. I get that.
No Miller High Life.
No.
Just beer.
But yeah, so now we cut back into the little like pool house
shed?
pool house shed thing, and Jesse and Lisa, they're starting to go to town. This is
They
as
are
close to harmonic.
making out.
This is as close to harmonic as we get as he starts, kissing down her stomach. But before he can, do anything more,
Freddy starts to take over. Whoa!
yeah, Freddy takes over his tongue, and there's a giant cow tongue-esque tongue that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that freaks him out, obviously. So he runs away. And Jesse, of course, when he needs someone and he's worried and scared and doesn't know where else to go, of course he runs into Grady's arms.
And here's the pool shed scene and the scene that's about to come really kind of lay into the quote unquote subtext.
Yeah.
That every
There's
time
a straight up line that we're about to get to that hits you over the head with like a baseball bat.
Every time Jesse starts to feel a certain way, Freddy starts to take over.
Yeah.
You've got the cow tongue scene, and he's like, "Wait, no, actually, I'm not into this. I'm into cow tongues." And then he's just completely taken out of the, or maybe he's bi. Maybe he's a bi icon. But
maybe
either way, he's definitely not straight.
No. So Jesse's in Grady's bedroom. He puts his hand over his mouth and he starts to tell him what's going on. And he tells him, how there's something trying to be inside of me. And Grady goes, "Yeah, and she's a female. Yet you're here, but you want to sleep with me." And it's like, all right, movie. Okay, sure. Yeah, we're not even. Is this supposed to be subtext? Is this the subtext that the writer was talking about, where the character straight up says, "You don't want to be with a girl, you want to sleep with me"? I don't know if that's subtext at that point. But yeah. So, or what were we? He starts telling him about everything. He tells him how he killed
Grady,
the coach.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets to him. He starts really kind of breaking down, and this is that first scene where I really start noticing how good of an actor the actor who plays Jesse can be. He is really good at playing the emotion in this scene. He really you can tell he's breaking, his character is broken, and he's trying to explain this to the one person he feels comfortable talking to.
Fun fact about the main, I think his name is Mark Patton.
No, it's not Mark. It's Robert.
It's Mark Patton.
Is it Mark? Sure.
Okay. And he is an openly gay man.
But not at the time of filming this. At the time of filming this, he was not. He was still closeted. But yeah, so he's having this really deep heart to heart with him. I'll be honest. I wrote this down. I'm noticing Isaiah's faces throughout this. Maybe I saw stuff that wasn't there, but I noticed a really palpable sexual tension between them in this scene. Isaiah seems to, every time I mention Grady being gay, he makes a face he doesn't agree, and that's fair. Maybe I'm reading too far into it. I do feel there's definitely an element of Jesse is more gay in these scenes, but there is a deep emotional connection and weird tension between them in this scene, which maybe it's two really good bros just being friends. I mean, there's a chance, and maybe that was what was intended. And maybe, as much as it was mentioned later by the writer as definitely a way of trying to just shift and blame the poor, I think maybe recently came out of the closet, but might have still been partially closeted gay man saying, "Oh, well, it was because he was gay is why all those undertones became so throughout the movie." And it's was it? I feel it's not fair to try to put blame on Mark when this movie is...
Yeah, it's not like an actor can do anything that the director and writer do not make them do.
Yeah.
I mean, you can act a certain...
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to even... Your acting is going to always reflect the writing and the direction of the movie.
Yeah.
Unless it's just completely improvised, which I don't think most of this, or really any of this was.
There's one improvised line that we'll get to later, but it's not from Jesse. Lisa's... after he explains everything, explains everything to him. Grady starts to be like, okay, fine, you can. I understand now. And Jesse's like, hey, please watch me. Like, I'm gonna go to sleep. Like, if I start freaking out at all, or if I wake up, or I try to leave, or anything, you need to stop me. And whatever you do, don't go to sleep. Then we cut away to Lisa and her friend, Carrie. We're gonna go with that. Having a little conversation, and Lisa's telling her, "Oh, I want to go try to find him, but I don't want to leave my own party." And her friend's like, "Who cares about the party? Go find him." Carrie or whatever her name is. She's a good friend. She's a good friend trying to help out her friend. She's very supportive. I feel like in so many other movies, this character of Carrie would be like, "Why do you care about this loser? Stop caring about this loser." And she's like been supportive the whole time, like, "Oh yeah, no, cool, good for you. Go, you get him. You be with him. Good for you." All right. Which, hey, it's a nice change of pace.
Kind of a pattern throughout this movie.
Yeah.
Like the dad is, not really the authoritarian that he seems when he's introduced, and Grady is not the bully that he's introduced as, and then the rich girl from across the street is not just using him as a ride to school, which she claims at first. There's we uncover the sincerity between a lot of characters.
We cut back to Grady, and he is deciding to ignore Jesse's warning and turns off the light and is about to go to sleep. Like the second that happens, Jesse starts waking up and be like, "Oh, it's happening again." And this scene is awesome as he has a American Werewolf in London-esque transition into Freddy here as his arm starts the claws come out, his arm starts ripping, and we see it's awesome. And then he we see an eye through his mouth, which I don't love that shot, but it's still cool.
Cool.
Yeah, and then we have Freddy literally come out of his stomach and just into the room, and
very Alien style.
Yeah.
But a whole person.
Yeah.
Yeah. But instead he just slices open his chest and crawls out.
Grady starts yelling like crazy. Borderline Jesse level screams here. Not quite the iconic screams that Jesse pulls off, but once again, kind of subverting gender norms in this movie. Grady is kind of screaming like a damsel in distress in this scene, which take it for what you will.
For his dad.
Yeah, he's screaming for his dad to come help him. His dad, who could not be played by Bob Shaye because he is not a real actor.
You're making me feel bad for him.
That's fair. I don't know. I would feel bad for Bob Shaye if he didn't, in my opinion, ruin the last movie with demanding those not post-credit scenes, but post-ending scenes he wanted in that movie that I feel really take away from the climax of that movie just to set up the potential sequels.
That's a good reason to dislike
I don't love Bob
Shaye. Tell you.
I mean, that's my only reason. That's really my only reason not to love him. I don't have anything else against the man. I don't know the guy at all, but I don't like that part about him. But yeah, so he's screaming for his dad. His dad's on the other side, and he's calling him Ron because we a couple times barely. Apparently, Grady's his last name. We kind of it's hinted at once when Carrie mentions his name earlier in the movie. Yeah, well, this is the first time we fully hear someone call him Ron or Ronnie. I don't remember what his mom called it, something like that. We're like, oh, okay, his name is Ron. His name's Ron Grady, not Grady. It happens a lot in the sports. I think sports guys a lot of times will call someone by their last name, but it caught me off guard when he wasn't called Grady at one point. I was like, wait, his name's not just Grady? Oh, okay. And Freddy, he stabs him through the door as we're on the other side, looking at his parents. His parents are yelling for him, to open the door. It's your dad. Open the door. And his claw marks come through the door, and some blood's dripping through it.
And he drags it down.
Yeah, he drags him down. And then we cut back, and it's just Jesse there, and he's covered in his blood, he's seeing Freddy just in the mirror, which kind of makes you wonder, did that transition scene happen at all, or was that just in Jesse's mind? We're not quite ever sure here.
Yeah,
I'd say due to later when Lisa like straight up
Is being
interacts
chased
with
by
Freddy,
Freddy?
that we
Yeah.
know that he did become Freddy here, but he then immediately transitioned right out of it. Which
Yeah,
I thought like was a weird juxtaposition, right back to him covered in the blood with the claw, which made me go like, so was he ever Freddy?
I feel
And-
like due to the way Freddy's powers work in this movie, maybe it was just like an illusory thing,
Yeah.
like with that he does with Lisa, where it's like, is she seeing these things? No, they're probably just fake.
Yeah.
It was probably just Jesse this whole time, but then, Freddy just wanted to do what Freddy does and scare the
Maybe.
crap out of another teenager.
I
Before
actually
he
do
kills
think
him.
there is actually a scene we will get to really soon that might actually allude to it being Jesse the whole time. We'll get to that scene.
Okay.
So now we cut back to Jesse starts hearing the police sirens at the house, so he leaves through the window, and he heads back to Lisa's house, and he comes into the door all covered in blood, and he tells her how he killed Grady, he killed Principal Snyder. He tells her that Fred Krueger is inside of him, and he's like trying to come out all the time, and he doesn't like. And she's like, and I wrote here that Jesse's acting is phenomenal and moving in this scene. Like I was my one of my one-on-one. I had a couple complaints. But that was one of my bigger complaints of the last movie was I did not like Heather something. I can't remember her last name. It's like Laning Camp or something like that. I didn't like her acting in that last movie and a lot of her emotional scenes. Jesse knocks it out of the park with these emotional scenes.
Yeah, he really does.
Mark is phenomenal in these scenes. And now he kind of opens up to her a little bit here, starts telling about that. She's like, oh, you're just going through stuff. Look like the death here. He's like, I'm literally covered in his blood. What else do I need to show you to prove this? And then we cut back out to the party, and the pool water is starting to like bubble, and the hot dogs explode into fire, and I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of the guy.
Jesse putting all the firecrackers in those hot dogs.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Some guy stops it, and he gets a big cheer by his name. Rocco? I think his name's Rocco. Rocco saves he stops the fire with the hot dogs.
Yes.
Even though in the credits he's nothing but barbecue boy.
I know, but his name is Rocco. It's weird. The doors everywhere start locking on their own, and Lisa tells Jesse he can fight Freddy, but he just doesn't think he can, and he doesn't think he can fight it, and everything starts exploding in the room, and then Freddy comes out of him, behind the couch because they don't want to do another big expensive shot. So
Transition scene.
he falls behind the
And
couch.
also, I mean, the first shot kind of discarded the Jesse's body like a husk.
Yeah,
And for this movie onward, we need them to be in the same
that is true. Yeah, there's a
physical form. So
there's this one line that once again I don't know if it was intentional because of, as we've discussed throughout this movie, I don't know what of this was intentional or not. But there's such a weirdly powerful line that, like we mentioned a little bit later, doesn't fully fit the themes, but just it hits home in a weird way, in my opinion. And not hits home, but it hits in a really powerful way. Lisa, wait, where were we? Yeah. So she's telling him, she's still yelling at him to fight it, but Freddy says he can't fight me. I'm him, which once we're talking about the possible gay coding of this movie, and it's like that line is so powerful. Like there's nothing to fight. That's him. Like I don't think that's intentional. But when you look at it like this, and it's hard to not at least wonder if that's there, this line is really powerful and weird, especially when you look at it. There's the big flaw with this whole theory about it being this gay movie is, even if it is, there's definitely no way around the fact that being gay makes you a child killer, according to this plot. So that's already a flaw. So there's that, but it's just line felt oddly powerful with the he can't fight me, I'm him line. I don't know, just it really it hit me like
reading another article online, people had theorized that alongside the gay coding, that Freddy isn't so much representative of his homosexuality as the repression of it.
Okay.
And the hatred of self. And so maybe I am him is I have to repress myself
and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. No, that's good. She runs off.
But again, who knows?
Yeah. Lisa runs off trying to escape, but the door's locked, so Freddy chases her down and he like trips her, and there's like a kind of awkward like pawing at her scene that like really not to this movie, but like hits home to like a lot of that like weird, for lack of a better term, predatorial nature of Freddy in like the other film of like it feels like we can't say what it looks like. But because YouTube would get very mad at us, but
but
the way he's like grabbing at her ankle and she's trying to fight him off, like that like hit a really like weird tone. I was like, oh, I don't like this scene. He bites her ankle, which is just weird, but it does, I guess, come into play later.
Yeah,
slightly,
kind of.
But after she bites her ankle, she's able to push him off, kick him off, and escape. And then we cut outside, and the pool water is practically boiling at this point, and people are freaking out. Everyone's starting to freak out a lot because they've noticed what's going. They can tell that something's going wrong. She's holding a knife to Freddy, and Jesse's voice, which I don't know if that's Freddy pretending to be Jesse or if that actually is Jesse coming through, tells her to like just kill him, just to end it. 'Cause she doesn't want to. She doesn't want to have to hurt him because she loves Jesse and she knows Jesse is in there. Well, yeah, so Jesse's voice tells her to kill him, and so she does. She starts trying to stab him, but Freddy is completely non-affected by this knife. It like goes through a little bit, but like nothing happens. He doesn't care.
To this illusion, we've got a whole bunch of people watching through the window, and we really don't get a definitive reaction that could help us decide one way or the other what is actually going on. I mean, it's not like, oh, the whole thing's a dream, right? But what you pointed out about like, is she just seeing the form of Freddy? Does everybody else see the form of Jesse standing there? That's not really made clear, and it's hinted that it could be clarified, right? Because we get all these other scenes in the movie, like when he's in Grady's room, Grady's, oh man, like that's clearly a reaction to, I think, what we see.
Yeah.
And here they're just kind of watching, and then they burst away when something genuinely scary and like incontrovertibly Freddy does start happening.
So after Jesse says it, Freddy's voice also says that he loves her, which is, it's just creepy. Which that's the whole point of that scene, is just to be creepy. That part of the scene is to just be creepy, and he eventually Freddy breaks through the door, and
then disappears.
And he kind of just disappears, and everything kind of stops. The water stops boiling. All the doors unlock. And it's like just kind of still for a little while. And then Freddy pops out of like the deck, and he starts just tormenting all the partygoers. He kills a few of them. He slashes a few. Like, it's a bunch of like him running around chasing people. This is a scene that Wes Craven absolutely hates. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Why?
I don't get it. My theory, and this is probably an unpopular theory because, as we pointed out, the majority of people don't love this movie. I think Wes Craven is really hard on this movie because he's mad that they made a movie without him. That's my theory, because he also in this documentary mentioned something about how the plot just didn't, like, the story made no sense, and I was like, what are you talking? The beats hit like from point to point. Is maybe some slight pacing issues, maybe, but to act like this movie has like no merit, like thematic, like with a theme, it's like, that's stupid. Like, there's definitely a story they're telling throughout this. You just don't like it because he didn't love the script, and he gave some revisions, and they went, we don't have time. We don't care, right? Wes, we just need to make this movie. You're not actually involved with this. Whatever. We're going to just make it. And that apparently, I think, this is my personal opinion, obviously, but I think Wes is just salty that they took his property that they do own because he made it for them and did something he didn't love with it and decided that there's no merit in it at all. And his reason for this scene is because, like, oh, well, when you put Freddy into the real world like this, with all these people around him, it takes away his power. And I'm like, how? He's running around killing a bunch of people. Like, he's still, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess some of his power is gone, but, like, he's not supposed to have his full power here. He's in the mortal world only taking over Jesse, so he doesn't have full power. I don't know.
Okay, okay. I was gonna ask you first what made you like this scene,
I don't
but you
specifically
just
like this scene. I just think that Wes
hate it.
Craven is being a dick
critical.
over it. Like, I don't think it's that bad. Like, it's like, whatever. Like, I get it. I kind of get it. Like, yes, he doesn't have a super mystical control, and yeah, and maybe every other time we see him pretty much throughout every other movie, because that's the way they chose to go with it. He has a lot of power in this scene by being the only person there with, like, one teen, and he's, like, chasing them and stuff. But, like, I don't know, this scene didn't, like, take me out of it, like, oh, I can't believe Freddy would be chasing some teens around, and, you know, I don't know.
I think that's definitely fair, but I think it's also fair to say that it was unnecessary for him to like burst through the door and then disappear and then reappear.
But see, I don't think that's the thing people have a problem.
like,
That's not the thing people have a problem with. It's the fact that he's even having this scene with the pool goers at all is the complaint I was reading and hearing.
well,
if that's the complaint that you're reading and hearing, I think that's silly because it's definitely easy to believe that, like, even in a real life situation, people would like run and cower from somebody with a knife just running around stabbing people. And so why wouldn't they do the same with a guy with knives for fingers? But yeah, I think the scene where he jumps through the door and disappears is like, well, no.
No,
but
yeah,
okay,
no, that seems
whatever.
weird. That part makes no sense.
And then he bursts into flames as he walks through a gate later.
Yeah.
Like in a scene later. That doesn't make sense. But yeah, I totally believe that he'd just run around and kill a whole bunch of teenagers.
What's your take on this scene, Isaiah? Because you seem to maybe have a slightly different take, and I want to hear it. I like hearing different takes.
well, I mean, so do I. But well before, I mean, the moment that I watched it, before you told me Wes Craven's critique of it, I felt the same way. And I don't know if he's talking about, like, in terms of power, his actual powers as a character, or the effect that he has on screen. For me, it was the effect that he has on screen. And it was for the same reason why I was underwhelmed by Jason in New York in that Friday the 13th movie. Um, because I mean, this isn't a very deep reason, right? Like, everything's scarier when you're alone.
Right.
And the horror movies become scarier as they progress, as they isolate the main character as to face the monster on their own, right? And so, just, you put the monster in a big crowd like this, however much they cower, it minimizes the effect to me. I felt that way in Jason in New York, and I felt that way as soon as I turned to the scene. This is one of my least favorite scenes in the movie for that very reason. As for, like, his powers as a character, the rules of Jason or Freddy and all that stuff, I don't know. I guess I don't really have much comment on that.
Super strong opinion on it.
Yeah, like, when in terms of the power that he has over the viewer on the screen, yeah, I think that's severely diminished when you put him in a big crowd like this. Same as it would be with any horror movie monster. So
Fair. Yeah, no, I don't agree, but I don't have a problem with your thought. It's like, that's completely fair. I do think that might have been part of what Wes Craven thought as well. Like, he mentioned, like, his power being, which that sounds similar to what maybe you're saying. I misinterpreted what he meant about, like, his powers itself, and he might have meant, like, the power it provoked. And you're probably like, I mean, here's the thing, you're agreeing with. It sounds like you're agreeing with one of the best, like, horror directors ever, and I'm not. So you're probably right, and that's fine.
Yeah, Austin. Yeah, you're wrong.
Yeah, Wes Craven is a genius. Like, I'm not gonna knock Wes Craven. He is amazing, but I just don't agree with it. I personally think this movie, he hated everything in it because it wasn't his. But right. This is actually, we're gonna go back into the scene though a little bit, because there's this one party goer that's trying to calm him down, and I feel like this is that
talk Freddy down,
which is that scene that makes this is the scene I was alluding to, where I think this might have been Jesse.
Just be Jesse, yeah.
And this is a guy trying to be like, hey, wait, whoa, bro, dude, no, yeah, you killed a dude a minute ago, but, like, just settle down. Like, he's trying to de-escalate the situation. Which,
because I think any sane person who sees Freddy would be like, Okay, well, I'm screwed.
Time to go.
Which they don't ever say it outright here, but it makes me wonder.
Yeah.
That's a really cool interpretation. That hadn't
Which
occurred to me.
I will say, if that interpretation is right, which here's the thing, it probably wasn't, because once again, like I've mentioned multiple times throughout me like praising parts of this movie, but saying I don't think any of this was intentional.
Is intentional?
I think a lot of this was them
It definitely
fumbling
could
to
have just
something that
been
worked.
bad writing.
Yeah. But yeah, so Freddy pushes him over, and I believe it was either at the beginning of the scene or at the end of the scene. This is that improvised line I also alluded to. Freddy, when he says, "You are all my children now," that is an improvisation by Robert Englund. He just added that line into the scene. Honestly,
It's terrifying if you think
it's a creepy
about
line. Once again,
context
though,
of him and children.
Yes.
it does, but also it doesn't fit the themes of this movie, which you can tell that it's improvised. Yes, that might fit Freddy's character overall, but I just feel like that line doesn't quite fit the theming this movie has been going for the whole time.
Or does your interpretation fit the movie? Or does your interpretation fit or not fit the movie?
That's fair. I mean, there's a
That's
chance,
another way
but I
to
feel like
ask
this
the
is the
question.
only line that I feel like took me out of that theming, and this line was improvised by an actor who thought he knew the character better. Which here's the thing, he's
Solid,
He's,
yeah.
he's stinking Robert Englund. I'm not knocking Robert Englund. I love Robert Englund,
He is
but
Freddy.
this line is an improvised line and not written for this movie.
That's a good point.
So, like, does this line fit the character of Freddy better? Yeah, probably. But for this movie, was it better? I don't know. But yeah, let's move on, though. We spent a lot of time on that scene.
On that one scene, yeah.
And to be fair, it is a very divisive scene, apparently. So it was important to discuss it at depth.
I would not have thought upon first watching the scene that it would have been as divisive as it is.
Yeah.
See, I had a feeling it was because I didn't hate the scene, and I know that everyone hates the scene, including Isaiah. Which is, I get it. I respect his opinion, and it's like, yeah, no, I expected there to be either divisiveness in the future comments or in the discussion. Where were we? So yeah, Lisa's dad shows up and he tries to shoot Freddy, but Lisa stops him, and Freddy walks through the fence in this like blazing doorway he made. Thought it was cool. Nothing really else there. He leaves. He's done there. Lisa heads to the power plant, and now this is where some scenes just get kind of weird. We have a couple practical effects that don't land in these next like two parts of the scene. We have she encounters these random hell dogs, I believe is what they're supposed to be, but they're just
human
dogs with like,
faces.
human faces, and like they're kind of cheaply done. Like it's not great.
And the dogs are making like feral cat noises,
Yeah.
like jungle cat noises.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she just walks
Pretty
right past
funny.
them, but they also do nothing to her. They don't try to stop her.
No, she just makes a face like,
Weird.
and then walks
on.
past him.
And she starts
Like,
walking around looking
I mean,
for Freddy.
Sure.
And her bite starts freaking out, and she unwraps it, and it's like covered in bugs.
Or
Pretty cool.
fire ants.
Oh yeah, fire
Which
ants.
is-
Was it fire ants? Okay.
Yeah, it's like a whole bunch of ants crawling around in her festering wound.
Yeah, and
Not bad.
she starts trying to hit it off, and then she realizes her leg is still wrapped, and that was all in her head.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And then she encounters a rat, and then the rat goes wah, and
Yeah.
then the rat that goes wah gets eaten by a dog, and
It's a
then
cat.
the dog goes wah.
It is a cat, actually.
Oh, okay.
I think it is a cat.
I
yeah.
only know this because this whole scene, this
Would not
these-
be able to tell.
They're so badly done, these puppets and stuff in this scene. And actually, there's a reason why. The man who was making the practical effects was at the time working on Alien and just didn't care. And just kind of rushed himself together because he was busy.
I'm gonna make this
I
rat.
got important stuff to do. I don't know. Here's some cat puppet.
I think they were
question mark?
supposed to be like a demonic rat and a demonic cat. But just
mean,
they're
this.
badly done because he was busy. He was busy doing stuff that he deemed more important.
Fair.
Which, you know
And
what? To be fair, if you
he
look
was
at these
right.
two movies, Alien is definitely the classic, and this is not.
Yeah.
So, in terms of like a monster popping out of somebody's body, is there like the same deal with Megadeth and Metallica over the Four Horsemen, where like they're fighting over who came up with it first? And,
I don't
like, was it Nightmare on Elm 2 or Alien first? It's like Because I've now got suspicions about that guy. Now that you mentioned him, like he told somebody from the other movie, like, "Hey, guess what we're doing for this movie? We got a monster popping out of somebody's chest." Like, huh?
Maybe.
Hey,
You know,
what if
Interesting.
we
you
did
raise a
that
solid
Yeah.
with
point.
Freddy?
Uh,
Oh man,
yeah, I don't have an answer to that.
who shot first, Aliens or Freddy 2?
Documentaries are silent.
McClunky, and so Freddy, he corners Lisa to get ready to kill her, but before he has a chance, she says that she loves Jesse. When she says she loves
His heart
him,
starts bleeding.
he's like, oh yeah, the wound from earlier starts bleeding because it's starting to break him down. She says she's going to get Jesse back, but Freddy thinks, he's like, no, Jesse's dead. But Freddy, and then she's like, no, I love him though, and he's like, oh, well, we're both gonna die then. I guess Freddy at this point has already realized, okay, fine, I'm dying, but I'm taking Jesse with me. You can't have him; he's mine. Freddy but he's losing his grip on Jesse, and so she walks over and she straight up starts smooching on Freddy, which once again adds to the maybe this is Jesse the whole time side of it. It makes it a little less creepy that she walked up and kissed this if it was just Jesse acting weird than if it was literally she walked up and kissed Freddy. I don't know. Maybe she just kissed Freddy because she thought it would work. Because here's the thing. She was right.
He was right.
Yeah, everything starts lighting on fire and it starts burning, and there's this really cool shot of it melting away Freddy. They use this, what's it called? That's like wax. Yeah, it's like wax, like head cast of him, and they like melted it with like, I think it was, I don't remember what they melted it with. They actually like melted this wax like on camera to make that like look of him melting, which is really well done. But yeah, now there's just like a lot of lingering shots on this though. This is the first time where I really felt like, not like long enough that I really had a problem with it, but this part of the movie felt like it dragged a little bit. Like there was like, do we really need to cut back to another shot of another pipe bursting onto flames?
Well, yeah, and then after that, we've got to pan to all the different shots of all the different pipes not being on fire.
Yeah. Just a lot of it.
And, yeah, to be exact, all of the pipes that we saw caught on fire earlier, we have to watch them
We have to
not
show
be on fire
every
now
single one of them.
to confirm to the viewer that it is over.
Yeah.
Not one pipe is left.
But
They
yeah.
are all not on fire now.
But
Thank
then we
goodness.
have the shot where she's getting a little worried because Freddy's burnt body is moving. But oh wait, no, it's not. It's just Jesse. He takes off the burnt like face, and it's Jesse.
Yeah.
And Lisa cries, and she walks toward him. They embrace. She kind of like holds him. And we fade to black, and the movie ends. Oh, no, it doesn't. Because it's a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, so we have to undo everything. So Jesse
Nobody wins.
Yeah, Jesse heads to the school bus and sits with Lisa. They hit a bump, and it reminds Jesse of his first nightmare. But the driver's not Freddy. It's fine. He's okay. See, it's not Freddy. We're okay. But the driver it didn't seem like the driver was going really fast there. But then Carrie is there behind Freddy, behind Jesse and Lisa, and she's like having a conversation with them. And then, oh, it's Freddy's hand pops through her, and it's over. That's the end. So Freddy gets him in the end, which we'll go straight into. This has been a different episode because there's been so much weird
analyzing
stuff.
of the film.
There was so much analyzation, which maybe is good, but there was a lot of analyzation throughout the movie that we felt the need to do for this one. Yeah. So, as we've said before, I'll just go. I like this movie. I actually really like this movie. Which is weird because I both at times love parts of it and don't understand other parts of it because I don't know what they were fully going for, and we've discussed the themes ad nauseum at this point. But I really love this movie, and I don't know. It's not a great movie, but it might be one of my favorite horror movies now. It just is. I can't fully explain why. But yeah, it just is. I will say, like we mentioned earlier, though, with like the one of the issues with the plot of this being about him being gay is, oh well, he just at the end he gets kissed and it's over. Heterosexual kiss saves him in the day. But then if you look at this, here's the thing. Yes, I'm definitely overanalyzing it at this point. I get that. I want to clear that out before I even go into this thought. But I think the Bob, whatever his last name is,
Akshay.
yeah, Bob Shaye's desire to always make sequels and just undo everything in his movies at the last scene really kind of sends a powerful message of that heterosexual kiss didn't stop him from being gay, which adds to the whole it being a gay movie throughout. Is it didn't stop him, which, yes, when you look at it as plainly there, it's like, well, it's like this weird child killer, like, are we, like, maybe it's talking about the repression, maybe it's talking about, which most likely what the intention was being gay is like having a demon inside of you. I think was more what they were actually going for when they made this.
Yeah, probably.
But this last scene of it, them reversing him being saved by the heterosexual kiss, adds to the so you can't stop being gay just because you try to force yourself to be, which I feel like unintentionally made a more powerful gay statement, which I liked it. I thought it was I don't know. I did. That's my thoughts. I love this movie, and I don't really fully know why.
Fair. That's how I feel about the ending of the last movie. Even though you hated it, I love that it just confirms Freddy is this really powerful nightmare being. But no, I'll talk about this movie instead. And I think the statement that best sums up how I feel about this movie is I love when it's not trying to be a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Like, I thought all of the theming around, like, his mental state collapsing and, like, oh, is this real or is it not, was really cool. And then we got to, like, I mean, I didn't hate the Nightmare on Elm Street parts at all by any means. I just thought that the movie was less strong during those parts. And that is like when I noticed a lot of the flaws of the movie the most. But I thought like Jesse and all the screen time we got with just Jesse and like his interactions with his friends and his family were when the movie really shined. Overall, I enjoyed this movie a lot more than I thought I would have because it's, a horror movie sequel. I was like, oh, geez, I'm ready to suffer. And I surprisingly enjoyed it quite a bit. So yeah, pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I was also pleasantly surprised by the sequel. I already really, as I think on it now, I was left wondering like, why did I like the first one better than this one? And I think really, I just they just made Freddy scary in the first one, but this one was definitely a better done movie because the characters
More
individually
fleshed out.
are, yeah, they're more fleshed out. They're just better developed and they're more real.
Yeah.
And the gay theory didn't occur to me, frankly. Y'all have some solid evidence. But actually, Austin, you said something at the beginning of this podcast that kind of made a lot of it make sense to me, at least for theories that occurred to me, when you said that depiction of him on the bus might be an image that he has of himself. And because I was legitimately curious to hear what y'all had to say about that, because I was kind of a blank slate on that. I didn't really understand it. And if that's the case, which I think, I mean, it has to be because it's a dream of himself, right? It has to be his subconscious view of
Yeah.
himself. And if that's the case, then in that light, the movie seems to me to take on a meaning more of approaching typical teenage fears about oneself, right? And so he sees himself as a withdrawn, unpopular, mocked behind his back kind of character. And then the more we get to know him in real life in the movie, we see that he's kind of an average Joe. And the movie sets up all these very stereotypical teenage antagonists. You know, the overbearing dad, um, the rich girl, who, as his initial nightmare might have us believe or suggest, would be more of a mocking character, and then this bully character, and they all end up actually being, very sincere, and they've got real sincere care for him in the movie, and that's just kind of revealed as it goes on in a very gradual, natural way. So I think all the characters are done very well. That was the way that I saw the movie. Like I said, y'all got some solid evidence, but I mean, I'm reminded of this class in high school. I remember why we went over this, but a teacher showed us a website where they would like play famous rock and heavy metal songs backwards and look for satanic messages and stuff like that. And they had a whole category for Black Sabbath songs. And I thought that was funny because you could just play them forwards and hear the exact messages you're looking for much more easily.
Fair.
And so I think with the gay theory, um, so much of this movie is explicitly dealing with that trying to find it elsewhere in a more subtle sense seems to be barking up the wrong tree, in my opinion, especially because um, his relationship with a girl is so central to resolving the plot. But your theory makes the ending seem less cheap, so there's that. But
All right. Well, next week we're going to be talking about Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, which is known as Dream Warriors, which is a loved movie. This movie, it's hit or miss. Some people, if people like it. That movie's just loved. Some people think it's the best of the series. We'll find out next week when we watch Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors.
Let's go.
Bye.
Bye bye.
y'all later.